You have a mobile and are dreaming of creating games there. Your search is over. In this video you will create this amazing game that may seem quite simple, but you'll still learn a lot of things by developing it. For example, how to move a player, collect and count coins, restart the game when hitting an obstacle, and so much other stuff. You don't need any previous knowledge, as I'll explain everything I do. Are you ready to create your first game in your mobile? Let's dive right in. To begin with this, we are going to be installing the Godot engine, and this is basically the application that we are going to be using in order to create our game. So to install it, you just have to go to the Google Play Store, and over here on the bottom click search and search for Godot. You're going to be finding this version or this application, actually Godot Editor 4, and you will click install. Now when that is done, click over there open, and it will ask you to give it all file access, and we really need to enable this because Godot will be creating its own files in order to work, and also throughout the creation of the game we are going to be creating some files. So if we don't give access to this, the application is not going to be working. And as simple as this, we already have the application completely set up. Now I will show you how you can create a new project. Here you will just click on the top left, create, and here you will provide the project name. Once that is done, we can click outside of there, or we can actually just click here, enter. And now over here we'll just click create and edit. So now you have your Godot project opened, and I know it may be a little bit complicated to understand everything because, well, you have tons of tabs over here and windows that you are able to navigate. So I will quickly go through some of them, and then others we will actually discover them as we create the game. So on the bottom left we have the file system. This is basically the place in which all the files that the game contains will appear. For example, by default the only thing that we have is the icon of the application. Then in the scene window, here is where every single object of the game will appear. For example, if we have the player object, it will appear over here in the hierarchy window or scene window. If we have there the score counter, the score text or anything like that, all those elements are going to be appearing on this panel. Then on the left in the inspector window, we are going to be able to modify different properties of the elements in the game. For example, we would be able to load in the player sprite, we would be able to modify the hitbox of the player, the size of that hitbox, for example. So you would basically modify any property of a game object. And also over here on the top, you can change from the 2D mode to the 3D mode to the script editor. And finally, Godot also provides an asset library. So basically you may have here some templates, plugins, etc. But well, we are not going to be taking a look at that in this video. So you can just go to the 2D mode because this is the one that we are going to be using. And here using two fingers, you can zoom in or zoom out. And you can also, using these two bars, you can move horizontally with this one, and you can move vertically with this one, okay? In order to deal with any error that you may face throughout the creation of the game as you follow along, there are two main things that you can do. The first one is just rewatching the corresponding YouTube chapter. For example, if you're having problems getting your player to move, then rewatch the part in which we set up the player, and then the player movements, of course. And then the other thing that you can do is to go to the description down below, and there you will find a link that will give you this file over here in Google Drive that you would be able to download. And this is basically the source code, okay? Basically this will give you like the finished project that we are going to be creating. So we are going to be able to open it up and spot even more where your possible problem is. So once that you have downloaded that file, you can go to your file manager app that you should have in your device. And then in your downloads folder, okay, that should be in your storage. I have it over there, download. Here you will find this zip file that in my case, I can just click it and it will tell me where do you want to extract this zip file. So I will select my internal storage in the downloads themselves, for example, and I will extract the files over there. In my case, I already have the source code over there, but I will just replace it. When that is done, you can open up again Godot, click import on the top left, and over here I will navigate to my download folder, and over here I'm going to be finding this folder. I will open it up. Okay, I will open it up again, and here I have the project.godot file that I have to select. I click open, then import and edit. It may take a while because there are tons of files over here, because here is the complete game, but well, here you're going to be able to take a look at all the code that we wrote or we're going to be writing throughout the course, as well as all the different elements of the game. So now the first thing that I'm going to be doing is to create one scene. So to do this, over here in the scenes window, I will create a brand new scene, and I want to create it with this button of other node. Basically, Godot uses a node system. This means that every element of the game is what is called a node. That is basically a unit, okay, an object. And well, each node has one specific functionality. For example, inside of node 2D, that are the ones made specifically for 2D, you're going to be finding collision objects, okay, and physics bodies 2D. So for example, we have here character body 2D, that this is usually used for characters. If we scroll down a little bit more, we can find, for example, these are the collision shape, okay, that this is basically the hitbox that you probably have heard of while you were playing or anything like that. You even have particle systems, some tools to animate, and even the control nodes are the one that allow you to create user interfaces, because you have base buttons, that these are basically menu buttons. You also have some containers, and also, for example, you have the label, okay, that is the one that is used to display text. And by the way, every node has its own description with a brief text about what that node does. For now, for the root node of our scene, we'll just use a plain node, okay? That as you can read in the description, this is just the base class for all scene objects. So I will create it over there, and I will switch to 2D mode, okay? Because the game is going to be 2D. Now I will click over there on it, and I will rename it, and I will call it game, okay? Because this is going to be the scene in which the game will actually happen, okay? And after doing this, I have to save this scene. So I will go to scene, save scene. And over here, I will create a new folder with this button over there, and I will type in scenes. I will press here enter. And there I have successfully created the scenes folder. And I will click save. Okay, and now in the file system, you can see that it has been updated because we have both the folder and the scene that we have just created. Now, more specifically in Godot, scenes aren't only like big menus, because for example, you may have one scene for the game in which the game actually happens, okay? And then you may have one other scene for the main menu, then you may have one other scene for the screen that says, I don't know, game completed or something like that. But also, you should create one scene by separated for each, let's say, main functionality of your game. So, for example, right now we are going to be creating the player. So, as we are going to be creating the player, we are not going to be creating it inside of the game scene, we are going to be creating it in its own scene. So, to create a new scene, you press on this icon over here, and here you have a brand new scene, okay? And then what we are going to be doing is to add this scene that will be the player inside of the game scene. You will see this in a second, you will see that it is much easier. And this is usually done like this because it helps organize the Godot project much easier and better. So now I will go to this new scene, and I will press once again other node. And over here the node that I want to add is called character body 2D. Why do I want to add this specific node? Because as it says in the description, this is a type of node that is specialized for characters moved by script. And basically the script is the file that we create in which we write the code, okay? So this is the best node to use when we want to create a player that we want to move using code, okay? So I will click over there, create, and once again I will rename it by just pressing on it. I will call it player, and our player will have two main things. The first one is going to be the actual image of the player, okay? And to render the image of the player, we will add a sprite, okay? You can see that here in the inspector, okay, over here, I can see the different properties of this node, and you have here the texture. So for example, if I press on the texture, I select quick load, here I see the icon, okay, that is basically this file over here. So I'll click open, and as you can see now I have the Godot icon over there. I can zoom in here using both fingers, exactly like this, and there I will be having the sprite. I will then change the sprite to something else, but well, just to start with this, it's going to be more than enough. So I will select once again the player node, and inside of this player node, I'm going to be adding the hitbox, okay? And here the hitbox is basically called collision shape, okay? So I'm going to be adding this node, and here once again in the inspector, I have this property shape, okay? That is the actual shape of the collision. So I will click over there, and as you can see, you have some pre-made shapes. But well, the most used I would say that are circle shape, rectangle shape, okay, and even capsule shape. The others are not really usually used, at least for these simple usages. So I will create a new rectangle over there, and I will zoom in again using both fingers, and you will see maybe this kind of blue rectangle, okay, that is a little bit smaller. So using these dots, I will just make this box bigger, because this is going to be my collision shape. Well, as you can see here, what I did is that I accidentally moved the sprite. So what I can do is go to scene, and here I can do undo, okay? Control C would be in the PC, okay? So I can just make this box big to be able to just cover all the image. Now once again we have to save this as scene, so we'll go to scene, save scene, and over here we'll check that I am indeed in the scenes folder, and I'm going to save it over there. Once again it will appear on the scenes folder. Now I also want to change the sprite of it. I don't want to be using the Godot icon. So I want just to use a white square. So here there are tons of white images that you would be able to use from the internet. So you can just look for white on Google and download any of these. So I will use, for example, this one. I will hold down the press over there, and I will click download image. And here I have it on my downloads folder. So I will select it over there. I will select move. I will go to my internal storage, and my project by default is saved in the documents folder, okay, so over here. And this one is the project that we are currently working on, so I will just move the image to that location. And now over here on the file system, you will actually find this white square. So we can go inside of the sprite, select here on this arrow, scroll down a little bit, and here select quick load. And here, instead of selecting the icon, I will select the other one that is basically the white square, click open, and well, now what is happening, I will use my two fingers to zoom out a little bit, is that well, this image is quite big in my case, so I have to scale it out. And to do this, I will use the transform here of the sprite to the node, and in the scale, I will modify it a little bit. For example, I will try out here 0.4. That would be 0.4, that is much better, but I still have to modify it a little bit. So now using these dots, once again, I will try to make it slightly smaller. And well, there it is. Now what I want to do with this player is that I want to move it to the position where I clicked. So for example, if the player is over there and I click here, the player should move to that position. And to do this, we have to add a script to it that will allow us to actually code this behavior. So we have to select this player node, attach a script to it with that icon. I will press outside of here so that the keyboard disappears. And here on the template, I will just use a brand new script, basically an empty script. And here we have to check here that the path, as you can see, it will be creating the script on the scenes folder. And that's not correct. So I will go back with that button over there. And right here, I will create a brand new folder that I will call scripts. Okay. Like this. And after doing that, I will click open and then create. Okay, so now I'm going to be having this script in which I can write anything that I want. First of all, I want to determine how fast my player is going to be moving. And to do this, I firstly have to create what is called a variable. Basically, a variable is a value that we are going to be storing, okay? So in this case, the value that I want to store is the speed. And to declare it, you use the keyword var, okay? And you may want to use this option in the keyboard over here, just to make sure that it is not auto-corrected. Because if not, it will maybe write it as bar of a place where you go and dance and whatever. So you may want to use that option in your keyboard. And here I will call it speed, okay? And then over here I have to assign a value to it. So for example, I will give it a value of 300, okay? Then we're going to see how this actually works. There are two more variables, two more things that I want to store. But as you can see right now, it is a little bit complicated to actually read what I'm writing. So I will go to editor settings, and I will scroll down a little bit until finding text editor, okay? And over here I will press behavior, and I will enable scroll past end of file. So now I can scroll down a little bit more and I can write much better. So the other variable that I need to create, once again I will use this button on my keyboard so that it is not auto-corrected. It's going to be the click position. Okay, so I will name it exactly like this. And positions in 2D have an X and a Y value, just as in mathematics. So in order to be able to store these values here in Godot, what we use is basically vectors, okay, vector 2. And by default, this vector 2, I will just call it vector 2.0, which means a vector 2 with basically 0 in the X and 0 in the Y. Okay, so I will call it over here vector 0. And I will do the same thing but with a variable called target position. Now what I need to do is to check when I am pressing the screen so that I actually set the click position to that position where I have just clicked. And to do this, we are going to be using a function that you call using func and then underscore. And here we're going to be using the function process delta, okay, exactly like this. Actually, yours is not going to be with those other words, okay, so it will just be declared exactly like this. And basically this function is being called every time, okay, it's like the infinite loop of the game. So anything that we write inside of this function is always going to be run, okay. So the first thing that we have to do, as I told you, is to detect when we are pressing the screen. And how you check this is by writing if input.is mouse button pressed, mouse button left. Godot can easily identify if this is also a touch press in mobile, so there is no problem with this. And if this condition is true, what we want to do is to update the click position variable that we have declared. So I will move down a little bit, and over here I will update the click position, okay, to be the global mouse position, okay, basically the mouse position. And after doing this, I will press once again enter, once again enter, and I will erase one time. Okay, so this will basically give me access to this other line outside of the condition. So once again, I will scroll down a little bit and even more, and in line 12 I will continue writing, sorry, in line 11, and here I have to set the target position, basically where do I want to move the player, and that will be basically the click position. And also here, let's make sure that this is outside of the if condition, and I will also press enter so that I separate both lines. And the formula is basically the following: you make a target position equal to the difference between click position and the current position of the player, that is called just position, and then you normalize those values. Okay, I am not going to get any deeper in how exactly normalized work. Initially, let's just think that in order to set this target position, we just need to have the difference between the click and the current position, and then normalize that difference. And then you just have to update the current velocity, multiplying target position times speed, and then finally using move and slide. Once again, this code could be a little bit complicated to understand for beginners, but what you have to understand here, the most important thing is that firstly, we are checking for the input, okay, and then based on that input, we are updating and getting the actual click position, and that also then we are setting the target position using this formula. And finally, once that all the variables have been set correctly, we update the current velocity, okay, to actually move towards that target position. And finally, with move and slide, this function will basically make sure that the movement actually happens. Now with this button on the top, we are going to be able to run the scene. And wherever I press, okay, the player is going to be moving towards that position, okay, as you can see. Now for that error that you saw that the player was moving a little bit weird, you just have to restart the Godot editor. You can play it once again and everything's going to be solved. So just make sure that you completely close the application, that you open it up again, and now for example you're going to see that that error is not going to be there anymore. Or if it actually persists, it is something that actually has to do with your phone, with how Godot is actually rendering things. Because in reality, if you close the application, open it up again, and you instantly play the game, you will realize that it is working fine. So it is something that I think that has to do with how mobile phones render these images, okay? Because also, as you can see, we have here a small error telling us something, but well, as you can read, it has to do with the rendering device driver. Now I am also receiving a warning here that the argument delta is never used, so I have to prefix it with an underscore, so I will just do that right away, exactly like this, and we are going to be having no more warnings. To create the obstacle scene, it will have some elements quite similar to the player, so to avoid having to do everything from scratch, I will hold down here the click on the player scene, and well, as you can see there, I was able to create a copy of this scene, but you should be able to here hold down the click on the player, and here you will have to release the click on duplicate, okay? And now I will type over there the game that I want to it, that in this case it is going to be obstacle, and then I will just press enter, and there I'm going to be having this scene that if I double click it, well, you can see that it opens up an identical scene to the player, but we're going to be doing some modifications. First of all, the name of the root node is not going to be player, it is going to be obstacle. Then I also want to modify the color of this white square, so I can select it, scroll down, and over here on canvas items, visibility modulate, I can literally give it any color that I want. I will just give it some kind of a red color, okay, maybe something like this. And also I will delete this script from this obstacle, so I will select it and I will press on this icon, and voila, I have no more scripts. Also, what I need to do is that my obstacle is not going to be a character body, because we are not going to be moving it using a script. So I will hold down the click over there and I will release it on where it says change type. So I will change its type to area 2D. And why to an area 2D? Because this will basically allow us to detect collisions. Because what we want to do is to be able to detect collisions between the player and the obstacle. That's why we're going to be using this area 2D. So to detect this collision, firstly we need to attach a new script to it. I will create it as an empty script and I will save it in the corresponding scripts folder, exactly right there. And then inside of this script, I need to detect the collision with the player. So I will select the obstacle node, I will go to node, and here I have the signals. And for example, here I can detect body enter. So this will detect collisions with other bodies. And remember that the player node was a character body, okay? So this will be able to actually detect the collision between both of them. I will click connect and then I will also click over here connect. Now I will erase this line because here what I want to do is to detect is the body with which I am colliding the player. So to do this you would type if body. So basically we would write it exactly like this. And body, by the way, this is an argument that is provided over here. This is basically the body, the object with which the obstacle is colliding. And if that thing with which the obstacle is colliding is the player, then what we want to do is to, in this case, just reload the scene. And to do that, you will just call get3.reload current scene. Now we have to go ahead and here on the game scene, add both of them. Here I have actually already added the player, but I will do it once again with you. So I will select it over here and I will try to delete it. So here I have to instantiate both of them, the player and the obstacle. Basically instantiating them means adding them to other scene. So I will select the game node and over here with this icon I can go ahead and instantiate some scenes. So I will instantiate the player and also having selected the game node I will instantiate the obstacle. Okay, sorry, I selected the player again. Yes, sorry. So I will undo and then I will select the corresponding obstacle scene. But first of all I need to go to the obstacle scene and actually save here the changes. So I will save them and now I will erase these objects. You can do that by holding down on the icon of the node and here now you will no longer press on the screen and you will leave it over here. So you're going to be able to scroll down in the delete and you will delete all these nodes. And now I will go ahead and add the corresponding obstacle and also I will add here the player. Okay, now I will select the obstacle and here using the move tool I'm going to be able to move it. So I will move it, let's say here, and then the player I will move it right here. So now I will click play over here and I will select my current scene as the main one. Basically the main scene is the one that is going to be run firstly, so of course I want to run my game scene as the first one. And as soon as I start playing, as you can see, the player is going like to the top left. We're going to be fixing that. But for example, I will move towards the obstacle, and when I collided with it, the scene was reloaded. So now let's basically fix this, that the player was going to the bottom, to the top left of the screen. So to do that, I will go to the player script, and over here I will add a few lines. So below my variables, I will add some lines and I will create a new function that in this case, it is going to be the ready function. This one is called as soon as the game starts. So as soon as the game starts, I want to set click position to be basically my current position. Exactly like that. So now as you can see, we don't anymore have that problem. The next thing that I want to create is the user interface that will basically have the coins counter. So I will create this in a brand new scene to basically have everything correctly organized. And I want to create a user interface. Okay, so I will use there that button. And now I will rename this node to UI, okay? Basically this would mean user interface. And the only thing that I want to have here is the coins counter, okay? So I will click here add, and the node that we have to use to do this is called label, okay? And as you can read in the description, this will just help us display text. So once it is there, let's also rename it accordingly. So I will call it score label, exactly like this. And well, the initial text for this is just going to be 0, okay? So exactly like this. I'm going to zoom in using both fingers, okay? Well, as you can see, this is super small. We have to make the text bigger, and to do this, first of all, here in the horizontal and vertical alignment, let's just make sure that it is centered both horizontally and vertically. And then I will scroll down a little bit, and in theme overrides, font sizes, you are able to provide a custom font size to just make this text bigger. So something like 100, okay, is going to work just fine. So now you can see the text is much bigger. And the good thing about control nodes is the fact that you can quite easily position them. You have this button over here on the top, and with this you can position this wherever you want. I will position it at the top center, and then using the move tool, okay, let's wait until this loads in. I will just move it down some pixels, but well, I will make sure that I do not change the x-axis, that I only modify the y. So I will zoom in a little bit for this. So let's try to do this. Oh man, this is more complicated than it seems. So let's try this once again. Well, if it is too complicated, just try to make it as accurately as possible, and there it is going to be. Okay, yes, indeed, there it is. Let's click here, scene, save scene, and I will save it in the corresponding scenes folder, and there we go. Now to create the actual score counter, we are going to be needing to attach a script to the UI node. So I will select it, I will attach a new script. The template that I will select is basically the one that is completely empty, and I will make sure that this is inside of the scripts folder. So there we go. So we don't actually need that much stuff over here. We just need to have here a variable that will tell us how many coins we have collected. So I will call this one score, and I will make it equal to 0 initially, because initially, well, the player won't have any coins collected. And then what I want to do is to always be updating the score label, because of course the number of coins that we have collected is going to be changing as the player collects more coins. So using the process delta function, that remember that is called like all the time, and by the way I will prefix it with an underscore so that I get no warnings as we used to have in the player. So what we need to do over here is to just update the score label text, and to reference this node we use the dollar symbol or the money symbol, and we just call here the node score label. We can double click it, and then what we want to modify is the text, so we are going to be writing dot text, and then we have to write equal, and now we have to convert the score variable, that is an integer, basically 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., into a string, because labels text must be strings. If they aren't strings, Godot will just give you an error. So we must make sure that this is converted into a string, and to do that we simply write str, and between parentheses we just pass the variable, that in this case it is just a score. Okay, so we don't need much things here in this UI script. So now we can go ahead, and first of all I will make sure that my changes are saved, And I will go back to the game scene and I will instantiate with this button over here the UI scene. So now I do see it over there, and now I have to create the coin that is going to be quite similar to the obstacle. So I will go ahead and first of all hold down the click over there on the obstacle scene, and I will release it on top of the duplicate button. Okay, so that will create a copy of this scene, and I will just call it coin. Okay, so now here I have this coin scene. So first of all, I need to change the name of this node. I will call it coin as well. I want to detach the script that it has, and also I want to disconnect the signal. And now I want to do it once again, but in a brand new script. So I will attach a new script to the area 2D, basically to the root node. It's going to be an empty script, so that's okay. And I will make sure that this is saved in the scripts folder, okay? Exactly like this. Before getting to code, something that I'm going to be doing is that I will select the sprite, I will go to the inspector, and I will rotate it a little bit. So I will go to the transform, okay, and here in the rotation, I will put something like 45. So this will just change the rotation of it, and it will seem as if it were other shape. But well, in fact, it is just a square that has been rotated, and I will do the same thing but with the collision shape, okay? So there we have it. I also need to change the sprite color, so I will go to the visibility, modulate, and over here I will just make it something close to yellow. You can use here the setting HSV because I think it's going to be a little bit easier for you to modify the color. So there we have it. And now what we have to do, as we did in our obstacle, is to connect the body enter signal to this script. So as we have been doing, we want to check if the body with which we are colliding is the player, and in that case, what do we want to do with the coin? We firstly want to delete the coin if it has been collected. So to delete the coin, we just call the method q underscore free. Okay, so I will call it over here. And actually, before doing this, I need to update the score variable that we had created in the UI script. Okay, basically this variable over here. So how do we actually achieve this? So first of all, we'll make sure that all my scenes are saved. So I will go to scene and save all scenes. And once everything is completely saved, I will go to the game scene, and over here I will instantiate one coin, okay? Because I want to show you something. So here the hierarchy, here it is actually highlighted how everything is being inherited. So we have to look for a way of accessing the UI node, and it is quite simple because the coin has access to the game node because it is the parent, and the game node that is the parent of coin has access to all the nodes, okay, since it is the parent of everything, it is the root. So we can get the parent from the coin, and that would give us access inside of the game node, and here from the game node we are going to be able to get the UI node, okay? So this is exactly how you do that, get parent.get node UI, and then over here, once we have access to this, we can just do dot score, okay? And here we just have to increase it by 1, so I will do plus equal 1. That would be adding 1 to the current amount that the score currently has. So now what you may want to do is to scale down a little bit your objects, because right now everything does work, because for example I can collide with the obstacle and well the game is going to be restarted, or I can also collect this coin that well it should be repositioned, and as you can see now I have one coin collected, and the game can be restarted. So everything is indeed working fine, but we may want to make things a little bit smaller. So we can go for example to the obstacle. I will go back to the inspector window, and over here in the sprite I can scroll down a little bit, and in the transform I have the scale, so I can make it a little bit smaller. For example, if x is 0.2 mostly. I can make it just be 0.1. Okay, and there it is much smaller. And something similar I can do with the collision shape, or I can directly adjust it over here using these dots over here. Well, you can technically do this exact same thing, but with your coins. So now, as you can see, things are much smaller. And maybe, well, here in the game scene, for some reason this isn't updated. So you can basically just delete these objects holding down on the exact icon of it, because if not you're going to be renaming it, and then scroll down over here, delete, and you can erase all coins and obstacles. Okay, and now instantiate them over again. So we'll create over here, for example, one coin, and as you can see, it is much smaller. And using the move tool, that is that one, I can, for example, position here one coin. I will duplicate it by holding down there, and on the top I can see duplicate. So now I have here coin 2, and I can put it, let's say, over here. I will create one last copy, and I will put it over here, and I will do the same thing but with the obstacles. For example, this is how my scene currently looks like, and I can even just press play and the game will start right away. But you will notice something, and that is that the game looks a little bit differently from what we are seeing in the scene window, because the player, for example, here in the scene window, we have some coins on the right of the window that is quite close to the right of the window, but well, here it doesn't look that good because we have a ton of space here that we are not using. So to fix this, it is actually quite simple. We have to go to project, then project settings, and over here on display window, exactly there, we have to scroll down a little bit, and over here on stretch mode, we can click over here and select canvas items. So now when we play again, we are going to see some black bars in the screen that will make sure that the aspect is kept. So now everything looks as it should, and well, as you can see, the player is moving, and we can collide with the obstacle and the game is restarted. We can, for example, collect this coin. I can collect this other coin, or for example, there I collided with the obstacle and the game is being restarted. Okay, or I can collect one coin and then here the game has been restarted. So indeed, I hope that you were able to actually learn lots of interesting things. This is free information just for you, completely available on YouTube. So I would really appreciate that you subscribe to the channel, because that really helps me release more amazing and free content here on this platform. I hope we can see each other in the next one, and have a great day. Bye bye.